Today we're going to look at long division and polynomials. We're going to start with a warm-up. Indicate the degree of the function and the sign of its leading coefficient. Do not give an actual equation. Well, let's first look at the degree of the function. It has something to do with the turning points. So this one right here has two turning points. You can see it's an odd function because the end behavior is the opposite. One's up and one's down. So if this has two turning points, two turning points, then the degree is 3. So this is degree 3. And then if we look at the lead coefficient, we filled out a table yesterday that we can look at. If it starts at negative infinity and it goes to positive infinity, the lead coefficient for this would be positive. This has one turning point, which means it's degree 2. You can also tell it's an even degree because the end behavior is the same, so degree 2. The lead coefficient, since it's positive and positive for the end behavior, would be positive. This one has 1, 2, 3 turning points. It's an even function because it ends up the same way, so this would be degree 4. And the lead coefficient, again, since they're both positive, would be positive. Let's start with the review problem here. We have a quadratic, x squared minus 3x plus 1. What are the factors of the following function? So if you remember from last unit, the factors are the opposite of the solutions, or the zeros. So here the zeros are 1 and 2. So the factors are the opposite, so it'd be x minus 1, x minus 2. So this is actually the factored form of this quadratic. To review, factors are numbers that multiply to another number. Example, what are factors of 24? That would be 1 and 24, negative 1, negative 24, 2, 12, negative 2, negative 12, 4, 6, negative 4, negative 6, 3, 8, negative 3, negative 8. How can you tell if 9 is a factor of 36? Well, we could do 36. We could divide that by 4 and we get, or sorry, divide by 9 and we get 4. How can you tell if 7 is a factor of 147? We could do 147 divided by 7, and that would give us 21. Question, how can you use long division to show that a number is a factor of another number? Well, if it's a factor, you can see that the remainder is 0. So when we divide, there is no remainder, and that means that we have two numbers that are factors of another number. So you can tell if it's a factor if the remainder is 0. Example, divide 189 by 3 without a calculator. So we have 189 divided by 3. Does 3 go into 1? No. Does 3 go into 18? Yes, it does. It goes in 6 times. So 6 times 3 is 18, and then we subtract or do the opposite. We get 0, so then we pull down the 9. Does 3 go into 9? Yes, it does. 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. When you subtract, you get no remainder. So we know that 3 times 63 is 189. So is 3 a factor? Yes. There's no remainder. So we're going to apply that same idea of long division to polynomials today. And so we'll go through several examples. Long division of polynomials, similar to regular division. If the remainder is 0, the divisor is a factor of the dividend, which is the equation. So here's an example right here. Is x plus 2 a factor of 6x plus 8? Show using long division. So we have 6x plus 8, and we have x plus 2. All right, does x, how many times does x go into 6x? 6 times. So like before we multiply, 6 times x is 6x, 6 times 2 is 12, and then we subtract or do the opposite. So we subtract. We get a 0 here, but here we get a remainder. 8 minus 12 is negative 4. So this is a remainder, so it is not a factor. So we would write this out as minus 4 over x plus 2, negative 4 left over x plus 2. This is the remainder. It is not a factor of 6x plus 8. Or you could look at it as how many times does x plus 2 go into 6x plus 8 evenly, and it doesn't. It would go into 6x plus 6 plus 12 evenly. So let me see, times 6 plus 12. It would be 6x plus 2 would be a factor of 6x plus 12. It would go into that 6 times evenly. Okay, let's try some more examples. Is x minus 2 a factor of this polynomial right here? So first step, how many times does x go into 6x cubed? Well, you want to make them match. So we have 6x, we already have an x here, so this would be 6x squared. So how many times does x go into 6x cubed? 6x squared times. We're going to multiply. 6 times x is 6x cubed. 6x squared times negative 2 is negative 12x squared. And then you subtract or do the opposite. So minus plus. And then we will combine like terms. This cancels, it should. We have negative 12x squared plus negative 19x squared plus 12x squared. So that would be negative 7x squared. And then we're going to pull down or carry down the 16x. How many times does x go into negative 7x squared? You want to make them match. We already have 1x here. So here we need a minus 7x. Then you multiply by both terms. So we have negative 7x times x is negative 7x squared. Negative 7x times negative 2 is negative or positive 14x. But then we do the opposite. So this will be a plus, this will be a minus. This cancels, it should, and then here we get a 2x. And we carry down the minus 4. How many times does x go into 2x? Well, that would be 2 times. You multiply. So we have 2x minus 4, but then do the opposite. So minus and plus, and you can see that the remainder is 0. So x minus 2 is a factor of this, and we rewrite it in factored form. It would be x minus 2 times 6x squared minus 7x plus 2. Okay, let's try another one. So we're going to see if this is a factor of this polynomial right here. We have 2x plus 3. We'll use long division, 2x cubed minus 7x squared minus 17x minus 3. So we are going to start here. How many times does 2x go into 2x cubed? 2x squared times, you multiply. 2x cubed, 2x squared times 3 is 6x squared. Then we do the opposite, so minus minus. This cancels. Here we get negative, oh, I'm sorry, we don't need the 2 here. That would be a 4, so I made a mistake here. Let's fix this. Okay, so here, how many times does 2x go into 2x cubed? We already have the 2 here and an x, so this should be just an x squared. So there's where I made my mistake. Now we multiply, and now they match. 2x cubed. X squared times 3 is 3x squared. We do the opposite, so minus minus. We get negative 10x squared. Pull down the negative 17x. This cancels. How many times does 2x go into negative 10x squared? Well, that would be negative 5x times. You multiply, so negative 5x times 2x is negative 10x squared. Negative 5x times 3 is negative 15x. Do the opposite. This cancels. Here we get negative 2x. Here we get a minus 3. How many times does 2x plus 3 go into negative 2x minus 3? Minus 1 times. Distribute, we get negative 2x minus 3. Do the opposite, and you get a remainder of 0. So again, this is a factor of this polynomial, and we can write it in factored form. It would be 2x plus 3 times x squared minus 5x minus 1. So if you multiply those together, we would get this polynomial right here. Okay, let's look at the next one. Negative 3x cubed plus 4x minus 1 divided by x minus 1. Notice we're missing an x squared term. So here's how we're going to write it out. X minus 1 divided by, or negative 3x cubed plus 0x. So here's the part, 0x squared, we have to fill it in, plus 4x minus 1, and all that being divided by x minus 1. And the steps are the same. How many times does x go into negative 3x squared? Negative 3x, or negative 3x cubed, negative 3x squared times, you multiply. Do the opposite. So this is a plus, this is a minus. We get negative, 3x squared, carry down the plus 4x. How many times does x go into negative 3x? Negative 3, or negative 3x squared. Negative 3x times, you multiply. Negative 3x times negative 1 is plus 3x. We do the opposite, so plus minus. 4x minus 3x is x minus 1. How many times does x go into x? One time. So you have x minus 1, but then do the opposite. So that would be minus, not plus. And the remainder is 0. So this is a factor. So we write in factored form x minus 1, excuse me, negative 3x squared minus 3x plus 1. Okay. We'll do one more example. Let's skip that one. Let's do one example that you get a remainder. So this one right here, how many times does x minus 3 go into x squared plus 2x plus 15? So again, make them match. How many times does x go into x squared? X times. You have x squared minus 3x. Do the opposite, minus plus. We get 5x plus 15. How many times does x go into 5? 5 times. Multiply. We get 5x minus 15, but then do the opposite. And here you can see there's a remainder of 30 over x minus 3. So this is not a factor of x squared plus 2x plus 15. So you're going to practice this long division. Again, remember, if there's not an extra term, then you have to fill it in. So this example that we skipped, again, it's an x cubed and it jumps right to an x. So to set this one up, you would have x plus 3, and then you would have x cubed plus 0x minus 8x plus 3. And if you want to check your answer, so try this from right here. And for example 5, here's what I end up with. X squared minus 3x plus 1 with no remainder. So try the long division method. Tomorrow we're going to go over synthetic division, which hopefully you'll find faster and easier. But try this for today, and we'll go over any questions tomorrow.